Well, nice to be back. I just want to say at the outset that Mr. Yasunaga has asked me to refer to him as Yasu, since, and it is not out of disrespect, it is out of friendliness. Even though we just met recently, we are very good friends already.
Okay, good.
I wanted to start, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about some big news that Mitsui made last week. It increased by a $2 billion purchase of IHH Health. And I wondered if you could explain to me and our audience what was behind that transaction and what your thoughts are about healthcare in Asia in general.
Okay. Thank you, Marty and Bloomberg, for giving me this opportunity. I'm really excited about this discussion. To respond to your question about IHH, let me tell you about the history of IHH. IHH is one of the largest hospital groups in Asia, private hospital groups in Asia. And we made our first investment in 2011. And during the last 6 years, the number of beds IHH holds, EBITDA, and also corporate value has been tripled during the last 6 years. And we jointly operated this hospital group with Khazanah, Malaysian state-owned private equity fund. And after the cabinet reshuffle in Malaysia, they decided to divest a part of equity of Khazanah. And because we are co-driver of this hospital chain, we were given exclusive opportunity for this equity transfer. And after the lengthy negotiation, we have reached agreement for this $2 billion deal. And the objective, let me also explain the strategy we have. Asia accounts for world's half population, and economy is growing, and also people are aging. So there's a clear demand in Asia for quality healthcare treatment, medical services. And we are now penetrating into India and Asia, in China in particular, where better medical care system is badly required. And we have, IHH has acquired Fortis Hospital Group in India. And also we have entered into a MOU with China Resources, which is a state-owned company in China, to promote mutual alliance between Mitsui and China Resources in the area of medical health care. The third point I want to highlight is big data. We have 50 hospitals in IHH, 12,000 beds, operational in 9 countries. We have 6 million outpatients and 600,000 inpatients. So utilizing such a big data, we can provide a quality service to patients. For example, we can provide a tailor-made approach to at-risk patient to make a treatment as early as possible. And that sort of approach can give patient better service, and the hospital can make more efficient services. Also, it will surely help insurance company reduce the medical payment And also it would finally reduce the budget for the government as well.
So looking forward to next year and beyond, you can conceivably see the growth of IHH continue and to be helped along by your involvement in that company.
Oh, yes. Just like what we did in the 6 years, we have reassured the strategic alliance with Kazana. And Kazana stays as a co-driver to support us. In order to make sure about that, I visited Kuala Lumpur last month to see Prime Minister Mahathir and also CEO of Kazana to make sure about the future strategic alliance between the two organizations. And also Prime Minister Mahathir especially shown a keen interest in such a big data utilization.
Well, it's an interesting strategy for Mitsui that has traditionally been a very commodity-focused organization. And your emphasis also is in LNG.
Yes.
And as China moves away from coal to LNG, what do you see Mitsui's role in that particular marketplace going forward?
Okay, because we are exposed to such a volatile businesses, as a counterbalance, we made a decision to make further investment in IHH. So it's a rebalance. Mm-hmm. And about the LNG business, China's drastic shift from coal to gas contributed dramatic increase of China's import of LNG. This year, from January to September, their import volume-wise has increased by 50%, 50, and it will reach 50 million tons for year 2018. So it's a dramatic change. The market is reacted very positively. So summer spot price has been doubled compared to last year. So it's create certainly new business opportunities. Now, in the long term, this tendency is irrevocable, and that's not only in China, but also in other Asian countries. They definitely need cleaner energy. In India, Pakistan, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Korea, those countries are increasing LNG imports now. So in order to respond to such a growth in demand, we are now constructing a new LNG plants in Louisiana, USA. That's a Cameron project. It will come on stream next year. And hopefully I will attend the inauguration ceremony in Louisiana next April. And that project will produce 12 million tons of LNG, out of which Mitsui handle 4 million tons. So we are virtually exporter of American gas, and it would contribute probably at the current market level $1.7 billion additional income for U.S. gas players. It will certainly ease trade deficit to that extent. So we will supply U.S. gas from Louisiana to primarily Asian market.
If I can follow up on the whole concept of cleaner energy, is global warming and climate change a unique opportunity for Mitsui beyond just LNG, but in infrastructure and other things?
Oh, yes. But first, we need to respond to additional demand in the region. So following Cameroon, we will make investment decision for Mozambique LNG project. We expect to reach FID point, final investment decision point, next year. And also we are working to develop a Browse gas field in Australia to connect that gas field with our existing Northwest Shelf LNG plant facilities. That also, gives incremental supply sources for Asian utility companies. Now, back to your points. We are also developing infrastructure side. We are building a new gas-fired power plant in Thailand. That's 2,500 megawatt big capacity. Also, we hold FPSOs, FSRUs.
Okay.
FSRUs, and that stands for Floating Storage and Regasification Unit. That's primarily working as a receiving terminal of LNG. We have that facility in Pakistan to help them import more LNGs.
And I can't help but notice that, and the New York Times recently did a whole series on how China is going all over the world to build projects. Do you find yourself in competition with China for those kinds of projects, or there is enough work to do to provide Mitsui and China with all the work they need?
Well, I think we are stepping up the stage, competition with the Chinese, from competition to collaboration with the Chinese. Let me tell you some example. We are building our own sugar refinery in Thailand. The contractor is Chinese sugar mill producer. And, they have quite price competitiveness, and we can utilize their quality for engineering, procurement, construction services. Also in Oman, we retain the Chinese power machinery company, turbine manufacturers. So in Middle East, they need power supply, and they want to introduce more IPPs. And in order to penetrate into that market, we need to utilize their Chinese competitiveness in facilities or provision of facilities.
Okay. Why don't we turn for a second to talk about, as we were talking before, about talent retention. It's an issue not just at Mitsui, it's an issue around the world of the quote-unquote millennials, and you hire them, you invest in them, and they move on. How do you deal with that problem?
Well, it's a global tendency. All the millennials have got entrepreneurship or spirit of, they want to be present as early as possible. So in Mitsui, in order to encourage and retain younger staff, we introduced internal entrepreneurship program, under which young guys can apply their risk money for new projects. They can be a shareholder, and they can be a president. And the company gives them the rest of the capital required, and also we provide business platform, like legal advisory services, accounting services, and if necessary, we will manage their tax management. We will provide tax management as well.
That's fascinating. So how many of your employees are taking advantage?
There are more than 10 persons raised hand, and we made a very strict qualification process. And one guy has got the award, and he has established a company, new company already, and several more in pipeline. But they need to improve their ideas to attract, to let me mobilize more capital resources. They need to improve the.
But they are Mitsui employees through this.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Of course, at the end of the day, they may leave the company as a pure, they may make a management buyout, or, once they become more confident about their venture.
As we're getting a little short on time, I wanted to bring up a couple of topics that, sort of are top of mind, and that is the trade environment in general around the world. Donald Trump has upset the world order. Have you at Mitsui found a palpable change in the way you operate because of the changed environment, or are you still operating as you always have?
Well, like what Mr. Motegi mentioned, I'm cautiously optimistic about the world economy, and also between China and USA. I think wisdom of US and China will solve the issues sooner or later. But I don't think it will be solved so soon. The bad news is the tension will continue. The people become more cautious, then it would affect negatively, eventually, the world economy.
Yeah, there's some of the market meltdown in the last couple of days has been attributed to concern over global growth.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any signs of that, or is it too early?
Well, market reacts too sharply, and as I said, I'm optimistic because China is still continue their investment in rural areas. They have to rebalance rural areas, urbanized areas, in order to satisfy 1.5 billion population. They keep spending money in infrastructure development. So I'm sure they have a certain demand. Also, in neighboring countries, China is acting very, playing very actively. And now, thanks to Japanese government's initiatives, we have started China-Japan collaboration in third countries so that we can introduce more transparency, more commercial justification, and also we need to let our Chinese partners observe international rules and regulations.
Yes. And finally, the one point that is making headlines around the world is what's happening to Carlos Ghosn at Nissan. And the question really is, would this, in terms of Japan being able to attract international CEOs and international management talent, do you see this having any kind of long-term effect on that process?
Well, very difficult question to answer. To be honest, first, I'm not in a position to talk about Nissan.
Fair enough.
But, we have two non-Japanese independent directors in Mitsui. One is Sam Walsh, ex-Rio Tinto CEO, and another is Jennifer Rogers, American legal attorney. So we are very much diversified. And we have advisory committees like for remuneration and nomination committee, where we discuss succession plan. All those committees are chaired by independent directors. So we have established quite a solid and transparent governance system already. And whether we could introduce more international talents or not, it is a real challenge. Even in Mitsui, we are a global company, but our HR system is not adequately responding to retaining and educating local talents. Mm-hmm. And we are now developing such a system quite dramatically. And last night I had enjoyable dinner with 14 selected members from Mitsui overseas offices. They are all diversified, gender-wise, nationality-wise, business background-wise, and they could be future leaders for Mitsui.
Great. Well, Yasu, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Marty.
And with that, we'll finish our presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much.